On an empty street in the dark of night, a young man hummed an off-key melody. His whole body seemed to merge with the darkness like a faceless, formless shadow. As he glanced over the posters hung in the shop windows, he caught sight of one, and his mouth suddenly widened into a malicious smile. The cold light in the shop window flickered. The golden-haired youth in the poster stared steadfastly forward.
Speak.
Helios woke from a brief sleep, clutching at his hair impatiently. He was sunken down into his chair, looking quite at ease, even a tad languid. But the man standing before him remained on his guard, maintaining a suitable distance, and ruminating several seconds before finally speaking.
The situation within the organization has changed from the original plan. Aside from traders, there are quite a few others that are turning free agent.
Helios chuckled lightly.
At a time like this, they think they can just sit back and name their price?
As he spoke, he stood up and pulled at a Venetian blind with his fingertip. A beam of light spilled in through the window, illuminating his icy eyes.
I don't need too many people. And I also don't need to know how you get it done. I just need results.
The man withdrew the fear in his eyes and continued to deliver his report to Helios.
There's also the matter regarding Noel. Lately, he's made contact in secret with another force. Perhaps he'll repeat what Hades did and cause trouble for us. Do you want me to put a stop to his operations?
Who?
Helios scowled as he struggled to recall this person who had always skulked in the shadows.
At best, he will only end up being an unwieldy weapon. For now, we have more important matters.
He turned his head, his gaze sharpening as he spoke.
Do we have the location of the evolution accelerator?
No news as of yet, but soon we'll confirm roughly what sector it's in.
The man rattled off his answer quickly, having clearly prepared for this question ahead of time. In the shadows, a menacing gloom flitted through Helios' eyes. He faced the person in front of him as he spoke, and yet it was as if he was talking to someone else, someone not in the room.
Since we've already declared war, there's no point in holding back. Find it and destroy it.
When news came that Anol had resurfaced, Helios thought again about this unremarkable person. He rarely showed up at the organization, or rather, no one ever knew what his true face looked like.
Anol has gone missing. Because of his evil, we're unable to effectively track him down for now.
The subordinate informed Helios of the trader's disappearance, but Anol's whereabouts remained a mystery. His evil was well suited for making himself invisible. After all, he was someone without an identity, which meant he could be anyone at all. Helios looked over the information on the screen and the two blurry photographs. He paused and said,
This person isn't worth the trouble. Give his information to an officer to handle.
But it wasn't long before Helios came to regret his decision. He stared blankly at the live broadcast on the screen and watched all the way through to the end, sneering inscrutably. Online, every platform's trending topic was the same: Hero's comeback concert. News of the sudden announcement caused a flurry of activity. Fans cheered at his return. The media puzzled over why he would choose such a sensitive time to come back, and some even worried about whether such a large-scale concert would pose some kind of security threat. Only Hero himself, Helios, calmly flipped back to the page with the live stream. The impromptu press conference on the screen seemed chaotic. The appearance of Hero had ignited a frenzy in all of the reporters, as countless questions were all shouted at once. Hero, are you planning to relaunch your career with this? Was this concert in the works all along? Some say you went off and got married during this withdrawal from public life. Is there any truth to that? Hero didn't answer. He just tilted his head and smiled as he winked at the cameras with that same playfulness of the past. But there was also a cold indifference in his eyes, and even flashes of malice. Helios finally took a good look at this character that he'd been ignoring all this time.
What are you planning?
The Kiro in the live stream looked straight at him, slowly mouthing the words.
I'm waiting for you.
As soon as he was done speaking, he was immediately pulled away by the agent following him. Savin, with a discreet sheen of perspiration on his forehead, took his place answering the barrage of questions.
Please wait for further announcements. It has been in the works for some time now. That news is untrue.
Helios stared vacantly at the live stream on the screen, then fired off a few lines of code. Not long after, an out-of-order prompt popped up on the live stream page. This cheap little trick, even using his own face to pull it off, felt like it deserved a slap on the wrist.
If you want me to go so bad, then I guess I'll go.
That familiar face once again popped up on his screen, and he frowned slightly. What do you think of the name Hero? As Helios avoided bystanders and entered the BS agency through the back door, he suddenly received a text from an encrypted number. He could tell who the sender was from the tone, but what interested him more than the random message was, how did the sender get his number? He pulled the brim of his hat down low and hurried up the emergency exit stairs. There were 10 hours until the concert, plenty of time to spare. Through the emergency exit door was a long, curved corridor. A multitude of rooms branched off from the hallway, all closed tight at the moment. Only one door was open, the dressing room belonging to Hero. The hallway security cameras swung silently left and right, but the surveillance feeds had long been replaced with recordings from earlier. Helios walked toward his destination fairly out in the open, quickly attracting the attention of some employees. One young woman even whispered to her friend,
"Do you think that's one of the agency's newly signed idols? He seems really cool."
When he reached a corner in the hallway, a familiar figure suddenly appeared in Helios' line of sight. He instantly stopped in his tracks. What is she doing here? The next second, the answer dawned on Helios. She's here for him. She would have definitely heard the news about the comeback concert, so she came straight to the agency to find Kiro. The thought caused a rage to break out in Helios' heart, but still, he didn't want to involve her in this matter. A door opened across the hall, and at that moment, Helios' attention was consumed by the girl in front of him, so he didn't notice the young man step out from behind the door, nor the unconcealed excitement and malice in his eyes.
He really came.
Upon hearing the voice beside him, Helios froze and whipped his head around. He saw a golden-haired figure brush past him, entering the girl's line of sight. She promptly let out a cry of surprise.
Kiro!
The whole incident happened within mere seconds. Helios watched the girl follow after Kiro. His appearance drew the attention of everyone around, as he was currently the sole focus of the media. Kiro looked back at the girl who had stopped him, his gaze drifting over her as he furtively shot Helios an icy stare. Anol flashed a smile, then quickly withdrew his gaze and turned to the girl, smiling at her apologetically. Sabin hurried over to seize him, and they launched into their old familiar pattern, as if he was the real Kiro. Everyone else faded into the background, and Helios sneered and stepped forward. From the corner of his eye, Anol saw him approach and began to panic. At that very moment, the elevator arrived. He immediately pulled the girl into the elevator and flashed a taunting smile. The girl didn't notice him at all, Before Helios could get there, the elevator door slowly began to close. They remained open long enough for him to catch a glimpse of the lighted floor button reflected in the elevator mirror. He resisted the urge to hit the open door button. The elevator was too small, and if it came to a fight, he couldn't guarantee the girl wouldn't get hurt. So he turned to the emergency exit beside the elevator and sprinted up the stairs. When he pushed open the door and emerged into the hallway, he was just in time to hear the ding of the arriving elevator. He heard the girl suspiciously ask,
Who are you?
but before he could rush over, a sound broke out at the other end of the hallway. Almost instantly, he recognized it as the sound of a pistol with a silencer being fired. Shortly after, the alarm was tripped, and the entire building erupted into a wailing of sirens. With no time to think, Helios rushed over in several bounding steps. Anticipating that the person hiding in the dark would open fire on him, he twisted his body to dodge at the very instant the bullet came hurtling past. He reached out and pulled the girl into his arms, leaving his own back completely exposed to danger. A gleam of metal pierced through the elevator door at a speed almost imperceptible to the human eye. He turned to look in the direction the bullet had come from, just in time to catch a glimpse of a piece of clothing disappearing behind the wall. Looking back at the frightened girl in his arms, he thought to himself, good, she wasn't hurt. After bringing the girl to the venue where the concert was about to be held, Helios just said a few hurried words and then left. A crackling in his earpiece quickly interrupted the silence. Helios turned on his signal and asked the person on the other end,
What's the situation?
After a brief blip of static, a man's voice replied with a hint of exasperation.
Not great. He gave us the slip again.
This answer was to be expected. Helios thought of that person constantly shifting identities, and calmly said,
He can't hide for long. And compared to him, that person who still hasn't shown their face is the bigger fish.
But Noel hasn't been in contact with anyone. I suspect he's using some other form we haven't detected.
A look of contemplation fell over Helios's eyes. His finger tapped absent-mindedly on his knee a few times before he spoke.
Someone like him is sure to leave a tell. Maybe there just aren't enough clues yet.
He thought a moment, then decided to end the call.
When you've tracked down his location, contact me.
Hang on.
The person on the other end stopped him.
I just dug up some new information about this kid. Send it to your inbox. I think you'll find it of interest.
Helios pulled out the mini-computer he carried on him and opened a heavily encrypted email. Inside were several files. He rapidly scanned through them, his gaze locking onto a name at the end of the file. Key.
So that was the reason why
A look of speculation flashed across his face. He didn't know who misled Noel and told him that if the original experiment wasn't successful, he would be the one to be mentored by Key and become his successor. Without a second thought, Helios erased all of the files. He had lost all interest in that person. He returned to the BS agency. The disturbance earlier had caused the entire building to be cordoned off as police blocked the flood of media. He easily entered the building along a pre-planned route. This time there were no unexpected occurrences. But after searching all the targeted areas, he didn't come up with any useful leads. Through the room's one-way glass, Helios scowled when he saw that special task force had arrived.
Why are these people always showing up where they're not needed?
Suddenly, one of the STF agents shot a glance his way, as if he'd sensed Helios's gaze. He immediately hid behind the wall. Realizing that the agent would probably come to search his room momentarily, he decided to get out of there by way of another route.
No leads.
Helios reconnected his communicator. The BS agency building receded further and further into the background as he walked away. Just then, A warning signal he'd specially set up sounded in his earpiece, immediately putting him on high alert. The person on the other end shrewdly noticed the change in his breathing and quickly asked,
What's wrong?
I'll tell you later.
Helios flagged down a car. Perhaps because his expression was so grim, the driver sped the whole way, not daring to delay for a moment. Helios never stopped working either, as both of his hands tapped away at the keyboard for confirmation. On the screen, the person he was tracking had started to move quickly, and their position was right where the concert was about to take place. A ruthless gleam flashed across Helios's eyes. He quickly found a loophole he'd previously left behind and began running a string of pre-written code. Line after line of letters and symbols flashed across the screen, and soon a window popped up. Helios firmly hit the enter key, successfully infiltrating that vehicle's onboard system. He let out a long, slow breath. Once everything was complete, he checked in with the person on the other end of the communicator. Due to the stress of recent events, his voice was a bit hoarse.
Proceeding as planned. Is everything ready?
The response on the other end was brief.
Rest assured.
It was half an hour before the concert. The venue was packed with fans who had arrived early. They carried all kinds of signs and flashing objects, their faces glowing with excitement and anticipation. A love song from early in Kiro's career was playing on the stage. His crisp, tender voice reverberated through every corner of the venue. In the highest seats of the stadium, a figure quietly watched from above. As he hummed an off-key melody to himself, a contortion of pain flared through his eyes.
All of this should have been mine.
He grumbled and muttered, but no one could hear him. There were 10 minutes left until the concert. Kiro, stood in the backstage dressing room looking at himself in the mirror, spacing out for a moment. That golden hair he hadn't seen in so long looked like the sun, and his costume made the darkness in his eyes melt away. Many seconds passed when it suddenly occurred to him. This was a last-minute concert, so how did Saven manage to get a custom-made costume so fast? He glanced over his set list again. Every song was so familiar, as if they were written into his bones. Going over his dance moves, he found he was a bit rusty, as if his last concert was years and years ago. As Kiro moved his arms through the motions on muscle memory, he realized his costume felt a little small, and he broke out in a laugh. Some things change, but some things will always be the same.
Where's Kiro? Has anyone seen him?
Saven's anxious voice carried down the hall, accompanied by the girl's frantic excuses. He chuckled to himself, lifted his head, and looked himself over in the mirror one last time. At long last, he once again felt a little nervous, just like the first time he ever stepped on a stage, both anxious and eager. He pushed open the door and walked out, and saw the girl standing just outside. She looked at him with red-rimmed eyes, as if she would cry at any second.
I'm back.
He walked forward to where he belonged, finally saying out loud those words he'd said to her countless times in his head. The concert was about to begin. The countdown had started ticking down. 3! Everyone in the stadium was on their feet, shouting at the stage, every pair of eyes filled with anticipation. 2! All of those shining lights being waved around by the fans were like a galaxy of stars, twinkling forever in the darkness. 1! Like a roaring river, the crowd erupted all at once in a blast of screams and cheers. Bang! Brilliant fireworks shot off, and all the lights flashed bright. But on the stage appeared a person more dazzling than all of them. The superstar, Kiro. Kiro stood at center stage, the intense spotlights almost blinding him to the crowds beyond. But he was enveloped by the wave of passionate screams, the thousands of fans cheering for him out in the crowd. He could imagine all those lights waving out there just for him like stars in the sky. And he could even imagine the girl so nearby, gazing up at him. This was truly where Hiro belonged. The first musical prelude began to play, and in his heart, he silently said to her,
Long time